Welcome to the Valhalla Filmcast, a show where normal guys talk about the films that they love. And here are your hosts, Bryce Thompson, Brian Hammond, and Cody Ryrie. Now get ready, because the show starts in 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to the Valhalla Filmcast. I am Bryce Thompson, and I am here with Cody Ryrie and Brian Hammond.
Bienvenidos.
Hello.
So, this is a little late, but the Valhalla Filmcast has seen The Shining on the big screen. We went to the nationwide showing just before Halloween, and for me, it was my first time viewing it. They showed it on Sunday and on Wednesday. I don't know if that was just what they did nationwide, but that's what they did here where we live.
Well, it was what's the name of that? The program they do it. It's what's the name
Phantom?
of that?
No.
Yeah, no.
Is it? I don't know.
What's
Something
it called,
like that.
Brian? You know.
I zoned out. What'd you say?
No, isn't it Phantom Events?
Fathom Events.
Oh, Fathom.
Fathom.
Yeah,
Fathom.
yeah.
See, I always get it. I always say
Sorry.
Phantom, but it's Fathom. Fathom Events. They broadcast this out to the world, or to the America, whatever. I don't know how far out they get, but I don't even know if they get out. I don't know. Anyways, they showed The Shining, and we went and saw it. And for me, it was the first time I'd seen it, and it was very interesting. I definitely have thoughts on this movie. Before we get started, if you haven't seen it and you don't want to know anything about it, stop listening to it, watch it, and then come back, because we're talking about spoilers. There's just too much, and I can't not talk about it. So, continuing on, it's a very interesting movie. One that I think everybody should watch, just to get it, just to get the feel for it. I mean, Stanley Kubrick.
We should say this, Bryce. You saw it once, and then you came back 2 days later and saw it again.
Yes,
So.
I had to. And I was going to say, in our Stanley Kubrick show with Brandon, he talks about, and he says that that's the movie that he thinks everybody should watch to get a hold of Stanley Kubrick, and I can agree with that. I think your expectations to going into this movie need to be correct. I guess it depends on who you are. I guess my first initial thought as I was watching this movie, I've tried to watch this movie before with my brother and wife, and we got to the credit roll, where they're driving down the road and the credits come up, saying what it is, and we're like, let's watch something else, because we were just so terrified of it. We're like, dude, this movie's gonna haunt our dreams. And so going into this movie, I don't really watch scary movies. I just don't like being scared, because then it's just, I don't know. Depends. I guess if I want to, then I do. But so going in this movie, I was like, man, this better be worth it, because I'm taking a big risk here. And coming out of it, during it, I was like, this isn't a scary movie. It's very good, very well made, fantastic movie. I just didn't think it was scary, at all. Not really at all. I thought it was a really good, thriller, because there's, crazy stuff in it, but it's not, a horror movie. I thought that, The Ring was scarier than this movie.
Yeah,
personally.
it's not a movie that I leave the theater and then I go home at night and I'm, looking around my apartment, scared.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
No, it's never really done that to me. for me, it's always been very unsettling, I guess is a better word.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good word. Yeah, that's good.
The shot, especially of the elevators with the 6,000 gallons of blood coming out, like just something about that is just deeply unsettling. It doesn't make me scared when I get home, but it also is not very comforting to some deep part of my brain. And that's not from the novel. That's straight from Kubrick. You know, that's something he added to it. So I can see exactly where you're coming from. There are a lot of movies out there that maybe are a lot more jump scary. There's not a lot of jump scares in this movie. No. You know, but
there's literally like a handful of jump scares, and 2 of them are title cards. So, I mean, yeah.
Wednesday!
As far as jump scares... as far as jump scares, there aren't a lot, but...
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, I mean...
What I wouldn't give to watch this for the first time again, Bryce.
It's so interesting. And I guess I went with my brother, my wife, and my sister, and they were disappointed. They were disappointed in this movie because of what they heard about it. And, you know, it's supposed to be like this horror, scary movie, you know, like this is the horror movie to watch on Halloween. You know, that's kind of like what it's been brought. And my wife said that at the end she was just laughing at it because she's like, this is just silly. You know, she just couldn't take it seriously. And I was thinking, Jack Nicholson is destroying it right now. Like, he is like amazing. Like, he's like my new favorite actor that I just like rediscovered because he does such a good job at acting like insane.
Yeah.
Like my favorite part is when she finds all the papers that he's typed up. Like, from that point on, it's so good. Because when he's like walking up the stairs, I think that's my favorite part of the entire movie. Like, he's so good. He's so good, so locked in, and
well, hey, you know, to comment on that scene where they go up the stairs, I think that holds the record for the most number of takes ever filmed on anything.
It's continuous too, isn't it? Like the whole like scene is just continuous. So I mean, that has to be like killer. Like, they probably did go a little bit insane filming that.
Wendy, darling, light of my life, I'm not gonna hurt you. You didn't let me finish my sentence. I said I'm not gonna hurt you. I'm just gonna bash your brains. I'm gonna bash them right the fuck in.
Yeah, well, especially poor Shelley Winters.
Yes, that's true, too.
She had to act terrified for hundreds of takes. But no, I love that Kubrick when he's going up the stairs. What does he say? The darling light of my life. Like, it's very threatening, but it's funny at the same time too.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and he's like, I'm not gonna hurt you. Yeah, that's so good. Oh, it's so good. It's like some of the best acting I think I've seen in a long time. You believe that he's crazy.
Well, here's the thing.
He's so good.
I want to offer a dissenting opinion from most people that I've heard or read. I think Jack Nicholson's great, and that's one of the things I noticed when I saw this on the big screen, because I've seen this movie 20 times, I don't know, a bunch.
Yeah.
But seeing it on the big screen, the performances really come through. You can see a lot of detail in what they're doing that you can't see on the smaller screen. And Jack Nicholson is much bigger than I thought he was on the TV. Like, you can see he's like sticking his tongue out, and he's going.
Oh, I know, he's crazy.
You know, he's going
so
nuts.
Good.
He's going over the top.
Good.
But my dissenting opinion is I really like Shelley Winters in this movie. A lot of people find Shelley Winters. That'd be interesting. Shelley Duvall, because a lot of people find her very annoying. I've heard that a lot. And they can't stand her in the last part of the movie. For me, like how terrified she is, something about it is electric that comes out of the screen when I'm watching it. And when you put her and Jack Nicholson together, it's like this perfect symphony of acting to me. I think they're brilliant. And I love, again, this is the part, and your wife is not alone, by the way, thinking the ending of the film was humorous. I've read a lot of people, especially like when she sees the lobby full of skeletons and cobwebs and all the other weird stuff that she sees, that people find that funny. For me, I think it's this really interesting kind of tableau of all these like horror movie things, and they're matched with her really, really unique face. She has a very unique face. Like, there's nobody that looks like her ever, you know, and her eyes will fly out of her head somehow. They're huge, and I just love the visual of that, and I love how she acts, and I'm sure it's a matter of taste. Either you're going to think she's annoying or you won't, and I think she's brilliant, and I know that makes me in the minority, but so be it. I love the movie for her and for Jack Nicholson, and the kid's not half bad either. I think he's pretty good too.
I think that I really like Danny. I think that he does.
I think the kid's great.
Yeah, he does a good job. And what I think is interesting, just to go back to your comment on Shelley, is I think she's extremely annoying until my favorite part of the movie. Like, until then. You know, and even then she still kind of like gets on my nerves, and I'm like, oh, you're annoying. But I think she does a good job at acting like terrified. Like when he's like bashing the door down.
Little pigs, let me come in. Not by the hair on your chinny chin chin. Then I'll huff. And I'll puff, and I'll blow your house in.
And she's like, ah, you know,
it
you're
doesn't
like, oh,
seem acted at all. It seems so real to me.
Like,
yeah.
I'm like,
well, and after 100 takes, it was real to her. I mean,
and being belittled by Stanley Kubrick too.
Yeah, right? I mean, constant. She was berated on a daily basis, and a lot of people think that it was just to get her in, you know, the role. To be that abused, you know, because she sets that up from the very beginning. I'm in the camp with you, Cody. I love her, and she's growing on me more and more. She brings it as soon as she does. You know, everything starts falling apart at the end. But the more I watch it, the more it grows on me at the beginning, because she plays that part perfectly of this beaten down, trodden. There's obviously physical abuse that's taking place, emotional abuse on a daily. I mean, Jack Nicholson's character is a freaking jerk. I mean,
yeah, he is.
And even from the very beginning on the car ride up, right?
Oh yeah,
like
the
way he treats her is just horrible and atrocious, and so I think she plays that role of that downtrodden wife, which is a horrible role, but that's a reality to some people. There are people like that, you know, live that life, and you know they have to justify their husband's actions. You know, I mean, how uncomfortable was that scene with the psychiatrist when she was explaining? You know, it happens.
Yeah,
just one of those things.
It's just one of those things, but. She plays that part perfectly, I think, and so her role is growing, or her portrayal as Wendy is definitely growing on me the more I watch it. So
I agree, and I knew that this movie I would love it the more I talked about it. Like I knew that, and I was like so excited. I was like, I can't wait to record and talk about this movie, because I know that everything that I kind of don't really like, if I talk about it, I'm probably going to end up liking it, because that's what talking does, you know. It brings up different points.
Well, you see the nuances you didn't see before.
Yeah.
And one last thing I wanted to bring up about Shelley Duvall before we move on is, I think a lot of people have said, you know, she does start off as the beaten down spouse, but she does end up having kind of a steel spine in her. I mean, from the outside she's total panic, and yet she always kind of pulls off what she needs to pull off. I mean, she beats him in the head with the baseball bat and drags him to the food locker. I mean, she's hysterical, but she's doing it, you know. And then she whacks him with the knife, you know, and so
I kind of think at that point though that she was scared. Like it was almost an accidental contact with the baseball bat. Not really, because she's swinging at him, but you know, she's just trying to get away. You know, you're not in your right sound of mind. And then I think the reason she drug him to the lockers, she was afraid what was going to happen when he woke up, because I mean, she's lived with this man, for how many years, and she was probably just terrified, like, what's he going to do to me if he wakes up? And that was just the best thing that popped in her head was, let's go lock him in the locker.
Not only is it just she's not just thinking about her, but also Danny, her mother is kicking in, even more. Mm-hmm. That's what her whole thing, that's why it all started out, is she went down to talk to him about taking Danny away. Yeah. And that's what like really kicked him off. He was insane, but she'd already accused him of hurting him once, and that really ticked him off. And then to come down again and say, "Hey, I'm taking him," then that really
he's already had the conversation with Grady about correcting your family.
Yeah,
in the bathroom and everything. There seems to be I caught a really strong theme of how awful misogyny can be, and that male dominated. Yep. Well, no, you need to be strong. You need to be,
Yes.
How he kind of falls into that, and I think that's some of my favorite scenes are the ones with Jack Nicholson and Grady, and Jack Nicholson and the bartender Lloyd. Is it Lloyd?
Lloyd's awesome. Yeah,
I don't know why. I know Lloyd is evil. You can tell. And yet, I really so like Lloyd. Though. I don't know why.
It's his accent, right?
I agree. And he's just good.
Well, that actor, he's also in Blade Runner, which is another one of my favorite movies, and he just has such a unique face again, and such a unique demeanor. I love their scenes together, and when Jack's talking about, it only happened once, and he's doing all the justifications there too. But terrific work there. I want to mention the sets too, because for me, seeing it on the big screen, really seeing the spaces of the film. So much of this movie is about space and about moving through space. With the Steadicam shots of Danny on the tricycle or the big wheel or whatever it is, and the giant lounge and the giant ballroom and the giant maze, and how they're all moving through these spaces and how they kind of become these hypnotic spaces. And yet something I was looking for this time is I couldn't make the spaces work. Like I was trying to put together geography, because
it doesn't work.
They don't work. This doesn't lead here and that doesn't lead there like it should, and this goes there, and the whole thing is a maze. It doesn't.
There's actually a guy on the internet, and he's actually made a video of how the outlay of the hotel wouldn't fit inside the actual hotel that they show on the outside. He's like, it doesn't match up, and it would not fit. It does not work. And the one point that the guy brings up is when he walks into the Almond's office, and there's a window, but it's like in the middle of the hotel, and so there wouldn't be a window there. And so like the sets like don't actually like work or like go together or like anything. But I just think that's really pretty interesting. It doesn't really matter. The hotel, it's all important. Like it's all important. But it doesn't matter that it's all like perfectly, fits together. That's not what's important.
Well, I think Kubrick had that in mind as he was, building the sets.
Yeah.
I mean, he threw so many things in there for disorientation, and let's talk about the mythos of Kubrick a little bit, because he's this genius filmmaker that is a perfectionist. It does take after take after take until he gets it right, or has enough copies that he can piecemeal it together. I don't know, but anyways, everything in there, because he's such a perfectionist, like that's why it's so fun to talk about specifically this movie, because there's so many things that are thrown in that are would be a continuity error in a normal film, but
it's on purpose.
It's on purpose with him. You've got the whole layout, of the floor plan. You've got things that disappear, like the chair and the table when he's at the typewriter and Wendy comes up to him. And even in, like the bathroom with his conversation with Grady, Jack Nicholson's conversation, he breaks that 180 degree and totally flips it around to disorientate you on purpose. Mm-hmm. And like, it's just amazing to watch and see how everything's put together. And I think everything is there for a reason. That's why people have so much fun, like watching this frame by frame and picking apart everything in it.
Yeah,
I could read about The Shining for hours. I mean, take up my whole day, seriously.
Well, and there's a documentary about all these interpretations. What's it called, Brian?
Room 237.
Yeah,
yes.
and it was on Netflix for a while. I don't know if it is anymore.
Have you seen it, Bryce?
I haven't. I've heard of it, and I would really
have
like
to
watch
it.
Yeah, it'd be interesting.
There are some crackpots on there, but it is the most entertaining 2 hours of your... It's great.
That's the thing about it, is that some of the theories are interesting and plausible, and I guess it's a mirror to what you find plausible, because I thought some of them were just ridiculous. I was sitting there like yelling at the screen, "What? That's the stupidest thing," And that's like actually a sign of a good documentary, because I was interacting with it, I thought it was so interesting.
That's true.
But things they bring up, and I had forgotten it came from this, but when they're watching TV in the lounge, there's no cord that goes to the TV. It's just sitting there, and there's no way to power it. And little bizarre things like the art that is in Halloran's apartment in Florida, like, what is the cook when he's laying on his bed in his house in Florida,
in his man cave.
I guess that's what it is. And then like he has these giant pictures in there, and they just I don't understand. I don't know.
Room 237 is still on Netflix.
Okay, so I'm actually probably gonna
highly recommend it. We'd be remiss if we didn't bring up a few of the conspiracy theories, right?
The one that I found plausible was the whole thing about that. It's all about the massacre of the Indian peoples.
Yeah,
and
so
that one works for me. I'm not sure I buy it all the way, but
since I haven't seen this movie except like a couple weeks ago, I stayed away from everything because in anticipation. So I don't know like any of these conspiracy theories.
Okay, well. The one that I said that I find most plausible is, they mentioned that the hotel was built on an Indian burial ground.
Yes.
And they had to repel some Indian attacks. And then in the Colorado Lounge, there's all kinds of Indian artifacts and motifs and whatever else. And the idea is that, the blood pouring out of the elevators, that's all the blood from the genocide of the Native Americans and that negative
coming
energy.
up from the elevator shaft from the ground.
Right, where the
is what people say.
Right, even though it's definitely pouring from the top. Anyway.
Oh, yeah. There is a thing called gravity.
So I find that one interesting. The one about the moon landing, I think, is just ludicrous, ridiculous.
Before we move on to that, let's
go ahead. Yeah,
I wanted to bring up a couple things. Along with the Indian motifs, I mean, even Wendy, 2 of her outfits are like an Indian-like theme. One of them, she's wearing braids, like which this is stereotypical. I don't know if it's PC or whatever to say, but you generally think of braids with a Native American
the Indian
woman and
princesses. Yes.
Yeah, and so and then they go so far as to talk about the baking powder. The Calumet baking powder, how they're all positioned one way, and then later on during the film, they're all, you can barely see their faces because of the Manifest Destiny and White Man's Burden, he says in the film, Jack Nicholson, and I think that's plausible, like very plausible.
Sure.
The Holocaust one, I think, has some validity to it as well. There are so many numbers. Number 42 just keeps coming up over and over and over. The film that was playing was The Summer of 42, and he wears a Mickey Mouse shirt that has a 42 on it. If you take 237, this is stretching, but 2 times 3 times 7 is 42. So there's all these little different numbers things, and the German typewriter. I don't know, that the Indian one is definitely the most plausible, but you ready for the moon landing? Let's talk a little bit.
Talk about the moon landing, just so I can get upset. And that.
So this has long been rumored that the government hired Stanley Kubrick to fake the moon landings. Okay, he shot the footage, and 2001: Space Odyssey is supposed to be the trial run, to test it using the front screen projection, using mirrors, and not the rear screen projection that was common for that time. The detail is incredible, and which is why it looks so magnificent still to this day, because it was very hard to do. And anyways, so a couple of the things in all work and no play, A11 appears several times in the sheets as she's flipping through it. Apollo 11. The most prominent one would be Danny as he is playing with the cars in the hallway, and he's has on the Apollo 11 sweatshirt, and he stands up like the rocket is taking off, and even the carpet is shaped like the landing pads at Cape Canaveral where the rocket took off, and so it talks about a lot of these things in that movie. And it's all hogwash, but I like listening to it and hearing about them, and I think that Kubrick knew about the rumor and he was just messing with
that's possible
with people. He was
that's possible.
Yeah, it's totally possible. Yeah, and so that's why I still like learning about it, because I think he was just it's the greatest punk. He punked us.
Well, I think that the guy,
the conspiracy theorist,
the guy who I'm not sure about this because I haven't watched it in a while, but I think the guy who put forward that theory talked about how Barry Lyndon. When you watch Barry Lyndon, you can tell that Stanley Kubrick was bored with it, and that offended me so much when I heard it that I didn't want to hear anything else to get, because I love Barry Lyndon. I think it's a masterpiece. And so I was offended by this guy's stupidity that he didn't see that in the first place. Although I will say this, going back to the beginning of our discussion with Brandon Nobles, when he said this is the one to watch, The Shining is Kubrick's most successful movie box office wise.
Yeah.
It made the most money and is the one that, if you talk to people who aren't into movies, they've heard of that one and most likely seen it. My mom, who's a big horror junkie, she loves The Shining, and yet she won't get within 30 feet of 2001: A Space Odyssey. So it's much more accessible in its own way.
Yeah,
than
definitely.
A lot of other Kubrick movies.
But and I think as we started the show out saying that, like you just said, it is. I would say it's definitely his easiest movie to get into, and then it gives you exactly what you need to expect for every other one of his movies. Because
that's true.
Like I said, this is. What I've heard, Mike, forever is that this is the horror movie, to end all horror movies. You're gonna die of being scared, and it's not at all. I mean, I wasn't, at all. And so that's Kubrick though. That's totally Kubrick. Full Metal Jacket is not your typical war movie. It's not Saving Private Ryan at all, and this showed me, Kubrick he makes his own movie. He takes a genre and does whatever he wants with it.
Yeah, well, I think he was
okay.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think he was a man who got bored with ordinary stuff. If it had already been done before, it was boring. And it's interesting that a lot of the reviews when The Shining came out were like, yeah, but it's just in a normal hotel. And it's not in a spooky house, or it's not in a spooky castle, and that's its strength to me. Is that?
Oh yeah, definitely, 100%.
Yeah. It doesn't. The one shot or two shots that actually have skeletons and cobwebs, that's very late in the film, and it's not even a huge deal. Most of the film is in just this normal, and it's bright. Even at night, there's enough lights you can see everything. It's never trying to peer through the darkness kind of movie. He was always confounding expectations, and which is why he always split people right down the middle. Because people were expecting something, and he never gives you what you expect, because for him that's boring. why would you, why would you, especially for him, because it took him like 8 years to make a movie, he's not going to spend 8 years on something that's already been done before, and that's normal. And so if you're expecting it, if you know that this is going to be something new, I think you can get a ton out of his work. If you just think he's going to do a really good version of something that's already been done before, well,
don't waste your time.
You're out of luck.
You're going to be disappointed. Yeah, you'll be disappointed. And I think that's what makes me like him so much, because I didn't really get it until I watched The Shining. Like, Kubrick was just interesting, weird guy, to me, that made weird movies. But then after I left the movie for the second time I saw it, I was like, it kind of like clicked, and I was like, that is what makes him so amazing. Is nothing is the way it is. Like Doctor Strangelove. Yeah, when I watched it in high school, hated it. I was like, this is stupid, dumb. Then I watched it again, and I was like, this is genius. Like, how genius is this movie? That he can make a movie about, this is like during the Cold War that he's making this movie. And he's making a joke out of it. And he's also having troops attack other American troops in his movie.
That's true. I didn't think
it's
that's
amazing. Like, this movie, it's awesome. Like, it's a great movie. We watch it in high school. We watch it in school. He's making a joke out of the Cold War, but we watch it. We watch it in school.
Well, and the thing about him, especially like, and this is something he shares with some of the Hitchcock films that are the best, I think, is they keep pulling you back in. Like, I can't leave Vertigo alone. Like, I just can't. Every 4 months, I'm like, Vertigo, and I put it back in. And it's the same way with The Shining and with Barry Lyndon and with 2001: A Space Odyssey. I just get the itch every now and then, and I've got to scratch that itch. And to be honest, The Shining may not be my favorite Kubrick film, but it's the one that itches me the most. Like, I put it in the Blu-ray player more than anything else, because I just can't leave the stupid thing alone. I don't know what it is, but it just pulls you in with this weird obsession. You've got to see it again. You've got to be in those places and see those shots and hear that music. And so it's a gift,
Definitely. Don't you think it's kind of like, there's so many unanswered questions in all of his movies, and I think that could be some of it. It's just so very interesting, and everything's all well done.
Yeah.
It's good.
Well, Brian, what were you going to say?
Oh, I was just going to say, you brought up how everything's so bright. It takes place in the in the daylight. It reminded me of some of the history about the making of the film. How it was all built on a set. Except for the the second unit shots and stuff. But anyways, when he's standing there like Jack Nicholson and looking out at the kids or at his wife and Danny playing outside with that look on his face, how bright that is, and to know that was all artificial lighting. I mean, the set actually caught on fire. It was so hot. And it just amazes me. And so if you don't watch it for Wendy's performance, if you don't watch it for the for the storyline, if you don't watch it for sure for Stephen King's adaptation, the most true adaptation of it, then watch it for the art of it, because every time I watch this, I am just sucked in from the very beginning, shot by shot by shot, and it just draws me in. I can't, if it's playing, I have to sit down and just finish watching. So that's my recommendation of it.
Well, last point I want to make real quick. I've read the book, The Shining, Stephen King's book, and I actually just read Dr. Sleep, which is the sequel to The Shining. And in that sequel, in the epilogue at the end, King just makes one reference to the fact that he really does not like this movie.
He hates it.
He hates this movie a lot, and I get it, because the book is very much about one man's struggle with alcohol, and how he loses that struggle even though he's a really good guy inside, and how his wife is not this beaten down woman. She's kind of this pampered lady who's had everything, and the characters are very different, and he was getting at different things. He wanted to talk about alcoholism. That's what he wanted to talk about. and the movie's not about alcoholism. Like, it's Kubrick's after a very different thing with the film. So as the author, I think he's allowed to be upset that something he thought of was taken in such a different direction. Sure, but I'm glad that I'm not him, because I can enjoy both. But I am, and The Shining is a very solid horror book. It's really well written. It's a really interesting idea, and yet the movie transcends it and becomes something more than the book ever was. And I understand why King's upset by that, but we're all the benefactors that Kubrick took that seed that was the book and was after a bigger fish. I don't know what he was after exactly. I'm not sure Kubrick knew exactly what he was after. No. He's always after something that maybe he couldn't quite reach. But in the end, again, it's a piece of art that has more questions than it does answers. And those are the movies that keep drawing us back to him. Like I said, Vertigo, I think, is a very good comparison. It's a movie that doesn't have a lot of answers for us. It just has a lot of questions. And for whatever reason, we just keep getting drawn back and keep getting drawn back. And so, by all means, read the book. I'm not saying don't read the book. I just think that the movie has become something bigger and greater than the book was.
So, before we end, I do have one question. So what's with the picture at the end?
He's always been there. He's always been the caretaker.
I get that, but like, what? It doesn't make any sense. So like, is he? Because I heard I heard one thing that like he just gets like reincarnated as like the keeper or something like that, and like he just keeps coming back. I don't know.
Well, and this is something that we talked about at the end of the show, Bryce, is the Grady that was the caretaker before, who killed his wife and his two little girls, and then he meets another Grady that's the butler or the waiter or whatever. They have different first names. I think the first one's Charles. The second one's Delbert. So they are the same person, and yet they're not the same person. And so it's almost like the hotel swallows a person and then puts them in this weird loop that they can't seem to get out of. I don't know. Again, there is no answer. It's just a question. The movie ends with a giant question mark. It really does.
So, thinking about this, could he... Because you know how it's kind of like awkward when the boss guy tells him the story?
Yeah.
It's almost like he's heard it before, and it's like the guy already knows, that we're going to go through this thing again. It's like, it's kind of like...
It was almost a formality, wasn't it?
It's kind of like, okay, I got to tell you this story now. And he's like, man, it's kind of crazy that it happened here, and everyone's kind of seems like, okay, we've done this before, let's just get on with it. That's kind of what it seems like after. When I saw it again, I was kind of like, this has to do something with the ending,
Well, and the fact that Jack's character just takes it. Yeah. Like, after getting that bit of information, like, wouldn't you be like, whoa, what? Like,
yes.
I mean, he's just, like, totally nonchalant.
And the really weird response he gives, like, it's like when somebody would be like, there's this comedian, Mike Birbiglia, that we listen to a ton on the trip. And he has this lady comes to him and says something about, I'm not worried about you because a rapist wouldn't have a bed like that. And he says something like, well, you'd never know. Like, it's kind of how Jack...
What I should have said was nothing, but what I did say was, you'd be surprised.
So it's like Jack responds that way. He gives that really weird response of, well, you don't have to worry about that with me. Who says that? The hotel manager, if he was a normal person, is not saying, now, we want to make sure you don't chop up your wife and son with an axe. He's telling him that because he feels like he has to, disclose it. And what he should have said, if we're following it, the comedian thing was, wow, that's terrible. I can see how some people... And he kind of says that. But you'd never, like, defend yourself. Like, no, I'm not a serial axe murderer, I promise, It's a really weird thing to say. The whole conversation is very strange.
It's Bill, it's so weird.
Who's that freaking
what's up
Bill
with
guy?
Bill?
What's up with Bill?
He's so awkward and just like
he has to be
you?
symbolic of something.
He
right?
has to be because
he has to be.
If you watch him, he's just looks suspicious the whole time,
and he stares at Jack the whole conversation. He just sits there and stares
says nothing.
Yeah.
And then when he's like, "Can you take him somewhere?" He's like, "Fine," and just like leaves like really fast and like all pissed off. And you're like, "Okay, whatever, dude. Like that's your job. Deal with it." I don't know. But yeah, that whole part right at the beginning, it's really weird. And at the very end, you're kind of like, what? What?
Well, and also Scatman Crothers, who we haven't talked about really. He has this.
Oh, yeah.
Well, his man cave we talked about, but yeah, he has this big, long act, right, where it's him getting back to Colorado, and then as soon as he enters, within 5 seconds.
How great is
dead,
that? How great
just
is
like
that? Like I saw this.
He doesn't die in the book. That character lives through the book. So that's another Kubrick edition. So
yeah, I think it's so good. Like that is such a good scene. Just because like I knew that it kind of happened, but when I watched it the second time, there was this lady sitting down like by me, and I could see her like out of the corner of my eye. And when he jumps out with the axe, she like threw her popcorn and like freaked out. And I was like, yes, that is the best part of the entire movie.
It is really well done. I mean, it's very graphic and shows, the axe making impact and going in. And so, it does.
We haven't.
You can see Jack's arm standing behind the pillar, though, I noticed on the big screen, which I've never noticed before. Wow. Yeah.
No,
it's weird what you pick up on.
Okay, I know we keep saying we're going to end, but we haven't talked about Room 237 yet either. And what's going on there.
Oh, man.
First off, that's one of the most unsettling things in the whole movie. Like,
Danny just needed to stay away. He just listened and stayed away.
Well, and I find that Jack's whole entrance into that, and it was funny because it got a laugh in the theater when he goes in and he first sees the woman there in the tub, and the look that he has on his face. When I heard the people laugh, I was like, yeah, that is kind of funny, isn't it? Like it's just pure lust, from Jack Nicholson's eyes, lasciviousness pouring out of him, and then the horrible change to the other lady, and then the thing that's very fascinating about that is as soon as he gets back to the apartment with Wendy, he's totally normal.
He's like, I didn't see anything at all.
He's not fighting back being shaken. He's not like trying to put down the terror. No, he's calm.
Yeah,
he's like, you see anything?
So can we?
No, nothing at all. It's
So can we talk about the elephant in the room then? That Jack has The Shining.
Yes.
And he's repressed it.
He has to.
All these years. Yeah, he has The Shining, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So what is the?
And that's why he's seeing all the all the ghosts and whatnot. And yeah, he has
who is the little dude that Danny talks to? Who is that?
Tony.
Do we really know?
He's the little boy who lives in his mouth.
Yeah, but we don't really know
and sometimes his stomach.
That's right.
When it gets uncomfortable.
I heard one. I was talking to this with a guy that I work with, and he said that it is Jack talking to him as a ghost.
Really?
I have heard.
And I thought that was quite interesting.
Yeah, I have heard that. I don't. Yeah, that Tony was someone, but I don't remember.
Well, okay, this is not the answer because
Jack.
It's from the novel, and the novel is not the answer to this query. But just to give you an idea, in the novel, Tony is just like an imaginary part of Danny's psyche that he uses to cope with all the things that are happening. And in the film, you notice he does retreat into Tony totally when things get really stressful. Danny's gone.
Yeah, catatonic.
Yeah. Oh, man. Yeah, that's pretty intense part.
Well, and the interesting behind-the-scenes thing, that thing with the finger he does, when Tony talks, he bends his finger. That came from Danny Lloyd, the actor. He just did that in his audition. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's really interesting. Yeah, that whole kid's scene is so cool. Like how Kubrick didn't show him anything. Like he thought he was just filming some drama.
A drama.
Yeah.
See, my question is,
That's
how
really
do you get him to film a drama where he's shaking and drooling Like, what part of the
Well,
drama
he-
is that? Like,
He was epileptic. I don't know.
Yeah, it's
Well-
very interesting.
and he films every time somebody sees something with The Shining or something they shouldn't. It's really interesting because you see what they're seeing straight on, and then you see a straight on shot of their face.
Yeah.
So you never see the two together, you know. Well, I mean, Lloyd and the whatever else, but as they're introduced, at least they're always introduced that way, and it's just an interesting visual echo. And by the end, his mom, Shelley Duvall's character, is seeing all kinds of stuff too. But at that point, the hotel is so humming. I'm not sure that anybody who walked in wouldn't see,
Yeah.
you know, stuff. I don't know, but I think you're absolutely right. I think the dad has The Shining. Obviously, the kid does, and it's a question mark whether or not the mom does. So, because she sees stuff, but it seems to me that's the first time she's ever seen anything because she's so horrified by all that.
Well, wouldn't
but
she
the
know-
dad just acts like it's normal. You know, it's just
Yep.
whatever.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Very interesting. If you have any answers for us, please reach out and let us know. Let us know what you think of The Shining. Let us know anything that you thought was interesting. It's definitely, if you hate this movie, please reach out. Let us know why. It would be interesting to know that. But this has been our discussion of Stanley Kubrick's The Shining. I am Bryce Thompson.
I'm Brian Hammond.
And I'm Cody Rary.
And we'll talk to you next time.
Here's Johnny.
The following views, opinions, and commentary are the sole property of the Valhalla Filmcast. Any unauthorized reproduction without prior consent is prohibited. Any incidental music, audio clips, or film trailers are used for the sole purpose of film criticism and commentary as allowed under the Fair Use Act.